Welcome to Ask the Pro. I'm Chris Dufay, and this is where I'm here to give you what's needed to create the online business, the money, and importantly, the freedom that you want. The Ask the Pro show has been upgraded, and it's also got a new home, which is turningproacademy.com. Now, if you go to turningproacademy.com, all the podcast episodes, video episodes, and in-depth articles are there waiting for you right now. Plus, if you go to turningproacademy.com/start here, then you can get access to the free coaching guides. So if you want to know how to double or triple your clients in just a few weeks, or if you want to know how to start and grow your online business, be sure to go to turningproacademy.com/start here to get access to it now. Welcome to Ask the Pro. I'm Chris Dufay, and this is where we dive in and peel back what really matters to you building your dream business, earning the money, creating the freedom, and making your mark whilst having fun along the way. And firstly, thank you so much for being here. I'm actually pretty pumped to be sharing this episode with you because this episode was actually originally recorded for the My Body Blend show. And this is with Phil Graham, and he is spitting gold in this episode. And I knew I just had to share it with you because this is going to help you become a better version of yourself. This is going to help you get better results with your clients as well, because I know so many trainers, coaches, and health professionals that are listening right now. We can all become better on what it is and how we best work with clients. And this is a big part of it, because the thing is, what are the two factors that are going to build your business? Number one, you need to get great results with your clients. Number two, let everyone know about it, especially the people that actually matter, which is your target market. So I want you to be able to enjoy and really soak up what so much greatness Phil is going to be sharing with you in this episode. Now, the Ask the Pro show is coming to you every single Tuesday, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the episodes. Also, we are opening up spots for the ambassadors positions with My Body Blend. So if you want to be able to get your own superfood blend, which is our best tasting greens, or if you want to be able to actually refer and recommend the actual products that you trust and use to your clients, then you can head on over to mybodyblend.com. That's where you're going to be able to get the superfood blend sent straight to you. That's also where you're going to be able to go to the ambassador page to apply, so we can make sure this is the right fit as well. Also, if you have not taken the Fitness Business Quiz, be sure to do so, because this is what we've created to make sure that we give you we match you with the guide that is going to show you the exact steps for building the business you want. So you're not going to be following some cookie cutter stuff that's just plaguing the internet. We want to make sure that we have a really good grasp on where are you at right now? What's the business that you want to grow? And what are the steps simply that you take from today to be able to get there? That's what we're answering with the Fitness Business Quiz. So you can take the quiz for free over at Chris Dufay, that's Chris, DUFEY.com/start here. And that is where you're going to get the coaching guide that will literally map out what you need to do. Now, let's bring on the greatness of Phil, because he does a ripping job. The big handsome man himself, Phil Graham, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast, buddy. We've been trying to tee this up for a little while. The heavens have aligned, and now we're ready to rock and roll for this. Now, there's a lot that I want to jump into, and we're going to be really delving into the depths of diabetes, fitness, and the truths, and really clearing out a lot of the fallacies with this. But before we get into this really hot topic, Phil, I want to say a big thank you for coming on board, and I want you to tell the listener who you are and why you are so phenomenal.
Well, thanks very much, Chris, for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure. I know we've been trying to set this up for quite a while. So today I want to talk about my whole journey into the fitness industry, and being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at 16 years of age to now running my own personal training business, having featured in pretty much every fitness publication, having competed and won in Junior Mr. Universe, Junior Mr. Britain, and a number of top bodybuilding shows around the country. I've also managed to secure a job with one of the UK's biggest supplement companies, Genetic Supplements, as a product advisor. I also used to work for BSN for their product development side as well. So I've had quite a nice entry into the fitness industry, and I've been able to see a lot of different elements in all aspects, from nutrition right through to training. And now specifically, I do a lot of work with upcoming personal trainers and fitness coaches, and teaching them, real evidence-based principles on nutrition and training and stuff like that. So I've had a really sort of fast-tracked sort of entry into the top of the industry. And I mean, that's grounded on a lot of hard work. And I mean, diabetes was the entry point for that, and something that I'm very grateful for. We talk about adversity and how it can lead the path for your life, and type 1 diabetes, being diagnosed with that at the time, although I didn't think was a good thing, has certainly led to where I am today, Chris. So thank you very much for having me on.
Matt, I love that you just said, like, you're so grateful that this obviously happened to you. And I think it's like that alone is such a powerful fact for someone to take away, is just being able to look, it wasn't a great thing. Do you know what I mean? But you've been able to turn it into a huge positive, and now you're able to positively impact so many people around the world that might have this, and then they can turn it into a positive. So, mate, that's a cracking start to get into this. So I tell you what, how did you, with your journey, obviously going into becoming the unit of a man that you are today, and obviously with the physique, how did you actually get into that journey with being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes?
Yeah, so we'll strip it right back. At 16 years of age, if I looked at my lifestyle, I looked at my diet, I looked at my exercise, it was the complete opposite of what I was doing today. Now, for those of you that are listening that know about diabetes, you'll know there's two different types. There's type 1, which is a genetic related form of diabetes, and there's type 2, which is a lifestyle-based version of diabetes. And when I was 16, I was diagnosed with type 1. Now, my lifestyle and my diet at the time was awful. I was overweight, I was inactive, I was stressed, my diet was absolutely appalling. And long story short, I was obviously genetically predisposed to the condition, and my environment and my lifestyle and the way I was leading probably sped that up. I mean, and that's not definite, but it's most likely one of the main reasons why it happened. And if I look at the very day that I began to notice things that were sort of going a little bit differently, my eyesight started to blur, I started to go to the toilet a lot, and I had unexpected weight loss. And this, as human beings, we're very in tune when things are off, when things just don't feel right. So long and story short, I went to the doctors. Fast forward a few hours, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I had to automatically change my lifestyle overnight. So I was presented with all these images of diabetic neuropathy and amputations and complications and all this real scary stuff. At 16 years of age, it wasn't the nicest thing to be exposed to. But one thing I remember is that I always had the choice to be able to control that. I could either accept it, get on with it, and what I considered do everything that I could to learn about the human body and actually be able to deal with the condition heads on, or I could just be a victim and ultimately let it eat me up as diabetes does. So from that day forth, I basically began to have a fascination in the human body. That led on to, I think I was in around about just finishing, we call it grammar school in the UK, which is the step before university. And it led me on to pursue a degree in human physiology and nutrition. And I knew that that was going to give me a really good platform to help improve my condition. Now, at the time, it was something that I was sort of interested in because I'd started training in the gym and I started being a little bit more physically active, and I knew that it was going to complement it, and I was interested in it too. And there was also jobs in it because I was, well aware of the rates of obesity that were increasing and all the medical complications that we're exposed to nowadays. So there was plenty of jobs in it. So that led me into studying nutrition. And with that, Chris, I got into the gym culture and I began lifting weights. And very quickly, I got hooked on it. I could see benefits occurring. I was educating myself on nutrition and training much more above and beyond what the typical gym goer was educating themselves with, because I was very internally driven to beat this diabetes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I had a very strong drive and motivation to do things correctly and understand how my body was processing nutrients, how my body was slightly different from a physiological aspect to everyday normal people. And long and story short, from that, I went into a job in the health service as a dietitian. And I was, again, teaching diabetics how to eat and physical activity, et cetera, et cetera. And as my knowledge grew and my fascination for training grew, I began to obviously get the trade-off of being in shape and being strong and being known for that at a very young age. And with the knowledge that I was learning and acquiring, I was able to get to where I needed to get with my physique and my performance a lot quicker than everyone else. That went noticed. And sooner or later, I began training individuals. I began being asked for diet plans, help, et cetera, et cetera. And I organically created through a hobby really, helping people out with their diet and nutrition. And long story short, I ended up leaving the dietetic job and running my personal training business, and I haven't looked back since. And since that time, I also partook in competitive bodybuilding. And I went in the deep end. I mean, from 17 years of age, I was competing and winning competitions. And, I found it fascinating. And it was my way of representing and saying, F you to diabetes. And I was told that I wasn't going to be able to do this. And people were mind-boggled as to how I could get my body fat down to such a low level with being diabetic and being able to manage carbohydrates. And we're going to talk about some of the strategies that I used to get there. And, it was a very difficult journey. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't easy. And I mean, there was plenty of people that were, oh, you're diabetic, you're taking insulin, your results are going to be easier. Well, when you consider the fact that diabetes is a catabolic condition, and as soon as you slip control, you actually start breaking down muscle tissue. It's a complete opposite. Never mind the fact that you have to balance blood sugars and you cannot take in too many calories, excess, to treat hypoglycemia, and as a result, hold you back from achieving a body composition goal. So there was a lot of little intricacies that people didn't see. I never talked about my diabetes much, Chris, and that was my coping strategy. I never brought it up. A lot of people didn't even know that I was diabetic. And a lot of the stuff that I had to go through. And that was my coping strategy for it. And I didn't want to become known for being a diabetic. But as of recent, we talked a little bit off air, the amount of diabetics that have come to me over the years and asked for help. And these are diabetics that haven't obviously had the same profound interest in physiology and nutrition as me, and have obviously just been diagnosed or whatever, that maybe been susceptible to a few complications and things like that. The typical advice out there on nutrition and training is not 100% accurate for the diabetic. And a lot of these individuals struggle. They struggle to get in shape, they struggle to perform, and they're bombarded by complications and poor blood sugar control because they just simply don't understand how the body works. And it was my duty, I felt it was my duty to give something back because I'd reached a level of success with my bodybuilding career and with my physique that I was keeping to myself. And, I wasn't contributing anything back. And, I put pen to paper there in December to start writing my book. And one of the reasons why I didn't want to write that was because I was reminding myself of all these complications and stuff that I was susceptible to. So there was a big psychological barrier to writing that and getting that started because I'd shifted all that, Chris, to the back of my head because I was managing my diabetes and I got into a pattern. But now, it's time to give back and help other people. And without diabetes, I wouldn't have gone and studied nutrition. I wouldn't have organically set up a business to help people get leaner, get stronger. And I don't just train diabetics, Chris. I train people that are obese. People with all sorts of conditions. And, that was the main starting point for that. So that's where I am today. And that's where everything is stemmed from. And I was told plenty of times along the way that I wouldn't be able to do what I do. Respected plenty of times. People asked, how did you do that? How would you, how can you do that whenever my diabetes doesn't let me do this, do that? And I've just been very focused on that end goal of what I wanted to achieve. And in life, I think, we set so many limits on ourselves. And most of that comes from internal sort of experiences that we've had in the past or the opinion of others. And it's a psychological skill to deflect that. And when you are able to develop that kind of mental strength yourself, the sky is the limit, obviously within context. I mean, I can't fly, but, sky is the, and I think that there's an awful lot of people out there that have conditions, whether it's cancer, whether it's amputations, whether it's diseases. And I mean, diabetes is an autoimmune disease. It will kill you if you don't look after it. And I was just another statistic, but I wasn't going to let that happen.
I love that, mate. I think it's really powerful, everything that you're coming through, what you've been able to achieve and move through it. And I remember, actually, it was just a short time. I remember competing in Denmark, and there was another guy competing. He was an Irishman as well, and he had type 1 diabetes. I remember talking to him about it, and I was just like, I was completely fascinated into how everything works and how you can make it work. And I'd be really interested to know, Phil, like, what were the non-accurate advice, if we can try and be a little bit politically correct, about what you were originally getting told what to do and what you found out what really works?
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back in a split with so much more for you. Now, I know you're listening and tuning in because you know how important your health is and how this can also catapult your business. This is why I'm very happy to say that this podcast is sponsored by My Body Blends and my favorite, the Superfood Elixir, the powerful greens drink. Now, this is designed specially to boost energy, aids detoxification, enhances the ability to burn fat, supports healthy carbohydrate metabolism, and best of all, is voted best tasting greens drink. Now, myself and the My Body Blends team are looking for ambassadors to join, so you and your clients get the health benefits plus adding in a strong income stream for you and your business. The ambassador program, which is by application only, means you get exclusive access to sell My Body Blends products like Superfood Elixir to your clients, plus giving you the special ambassador pricing and bonuses. So once you become an ambassador, you can join the other top health and fitness players that are adding thousands to their week's income. Now, there is only a limited number of ambassadors we are taking on board, as this is a tribe leading the way together. So to apply and to join, go to mybodyblends.com/ambassador or add the checkout code that is Turning Pro, all one word, when you're going to get your own Superfood Elixir to order. Plus, you're going to get free shipping and a bonus to save yourself over $250 instantly. So just use that coupon code Turning Pro in the checkout and you can save over $250 right now, all on mybodyblends.com.
Okay, so when we look at diabetes, a common approach to that is to consider exercise as one of the main modes of treatment for the condition. The reality is, whenever you have type 1 diabetes, exercise can actually conflict with your control. Okay, so what I mean by that is, whenever we exercise is a stressful response to the system, right? Especially anaerobic exercise, weight training in particular. Whenever we weight train, we get an increase in corticotropins or stress hormones, adrenaline, norepinephrine, and all these other hormones. We also get a buildup in lactic acid. Lactic acid is again a sort of byproduct of anaerobic metabolism, and as a result of that, we get things that go on in the liver, like the Cori cycle and the recirculation of lactate into glucose, and that gets put back into the bloodstream. And as a result of that, what we tend to see is an increase in blood sugar levels. We tend to see the liver hepatic output of glucose goes through the roof. Mm-hmm. So a lot of diabetics that go into exercise with the thought process of, this exercise is going to drop my blood sugar, it doesn't really, it increases your blood sugar. So you get people that are manipulating their diet and controlling their carbohydrates, and they're going in a balanced blood sugar and coming out high. And when they go into a high, which is hyperglycemia, they tend to get an awful lot of toxic byproducts that build up. It's a catabolic condition, so the whole process of building muscle turns into a catabolic process. So you can see that it can prove very counterproductive to muscle growth and performance. Electrolyte metabolism and everything gets screwed up, Chris. We also look at type 1 diabetes from the aspect of hypoglycemia and exercising and having a hypoglycemia due to the fact that there's too much circulating insulin in the system because it's injected exogenously. And as a result of that, that can drive blood sugar levels down. And as a result of that, performance can be impaired and the ingestion of unnecessary calories can take place. So with that, what we tend to see is slower results with body composition, poor effects with performance or drop-offs. I mean, you imagine in the middle of a squat or a big heavy deadlifting session, you're taking a hypoglycemic attack and you have to rush off and take carbohydrate. And that may have an effect on your gastric emptying, your stomach, and it may affect your performance. So if you're a competitive athlete, it can have repercussions. You then got to look at the aspects of going on stage and things like that in a competitive environment, powerlifting, anything other sport as well. You're going to get an increase in blood glucose levels. What happens when that happens? You get that whole electrolyte stuff going on. So the whole idea of coming in hard, cut and dry, quite hard for a diabetic. So, it's just to do with the way electrolytes and fluids move around the cell. And, if you've got to try and inject insulin when you're covered in tan, it's not the cleanest or most hygienic, and then you're at risk of taking, some kind of septic wound or something like that, and you want to check your blood sugar and your hands are covered with tan, you're just given the entry for germs to get in there. So there's a lot of like little fiddly things like that, but, general things as well. Diabetics who are uncontrolled are much more susceptible to cardiovascular disease because think about this, Chris, the nutrients don't leave the blood. So the glucose and the fatty acids and the protein, they do not leave the blood effectively or as efficiently as it would in a healthy individual because there isn't the transport mechanism in place backed by the insulin. So what we tend to see is scarring of the interior of all the cardiovascular system, and that leaves us open to arterial sclerosis, plaque buildup, and all these kind of aspects that are going to go on. You've got to look at the whole sort of implication of having a greater susceptibility to health problems. That can obviously be aggravated by stress. That can be aggravated by diet. That can be aggravated by lack of sleep. That can be aggravated by other medicinal or medicative use. We got a lot of stuff going on there. So, yeah.
I'm just interested to know from the listener's point of view and the realm of where they're coming from, the difference with, say, managing carbohydrates, say, from someone that could just be wanting to be in decent shape and health is kind of like more of the weekend warrior type compared to the other side of the pendulum that might be the competitive physique athlete. How do you recommend they go on their journey of managing their carbs and is it different and how?
Well, first of all, we got to consider the whole aspect of energy balance. And a diabetic is not in the same kind of energy balance paradigm that a normal individual is. Because when a diabetic doesn't take insulin, they don't use fuel appropriately. So what you tend to find is diabetics actually leak energy in the urine. So that's why whenever somebody has a high blood sugar, hyperglycemia, we tend to see urine coming out in our glucose coming out in the urine. Tend to see protein coming out. We've got ketones that are used as fuel. So in a nutshell, Chris, if you want to use fuel appropriately, balance your blood sugars with your medication. When your medication is in balance and when you are eating within that, you eat towards your goal. So a surplus in calories for mass gain with the intention of adding high quality lean muscle mass, minimal fat. Again, that has to be assessed and tweaked accordingly. For fat loss, again, a calorie controlled diet where there's a deficit. And again, the carbohydrates are enough to fuel performance, fuel hypoglycemic episodes when they occur, and that the carbohydrate choices are appropriately dosed and appropriately combined with other food groups to provide a healthy and manageable entry into the bloodstream that doesn't cause spikes in blood sugar levels that are going to conflict with control. Because bear in mind, again, fluctuating blood sugar levels like hyperglycemia and hypo can really drive mood around the bend. So how do you guys feel after, for healthy individuals, how do you feel after your Christmas dinner or your Thanksgiving, whatever it is you guys celebrate? You normally feel absolutely screwed. Lethargic, bloated, stressed, tired. That's how a diabetic feels whenever their blood sugar rises. Okay? So you can imagine that in the performance aspect. So it's extremely important to balance blood sugar levels. If blood sugar levels are balanced, everything will work as normal. The only time things do not work is when you're out of range. So for any diabetics listening, if you can keep your blood sugar levels in check and manage your calories appropriately to your goal whilst meeting your minimum targets for protein and fats, with obviously their distinct rules, protein in recovery, fat in hormonal and essential omega-3 fatty acids for other processes, and then carbohydrates will fill the remainder of that for performance and also food preference. You do not have to necessarily avoid carbohydrates to improve the control of your diabetes, especially in relation to type 1. In type 2, usually, as a general nutshell comment, losing weight and improving your physical activity will reverse your type 2 diabetes. And that's just general fat loss. Now, a lower carbohydrate diet may be more susceptible in those individuals. But for a type 1 diabetic, most type 1 diabetics aren't overweight. Most type 1s are actually maybe underweight.
Yeah.
In fact, there's plenty that are healthy weight. They can most certainly do with carbohydrates in their diet. And regardless if you're type 1 or type 2, I think restricting an entire food group, especially with the fiber, vitamin, mineral, micronutrient, phytonutrient, and antioxidant content is foolish. And again, we lead into the whole psychological aspect of eating and adherence and all these things that are going on. So we do not want to have anything that conflicts with the ability for an individual to adhere to their diet or mismanage or miss out on key macronutrients and other nutrients involved with food.
This is fantastic. Okay, so let's maybe just switch slightly gears over to the type 2 diabetics, because obviously I feel like there's going to be a lot of those in the crowd listening along as well. How do you feel like, obviously, this being more of a lifestyle generator? And I just want to bring back something I noted down that I really thought was great that you said much earlier on, was obviously type 1 diabetes is genetic predisposed, but obviously your lifestyle, your eating, stress levels, all these things played into it to be able to flick the switch with possibly what was going on a genetic level as well. So I think that was brilliant. And I really appreciate you saying that, Phil.
Some people, with the condition and stuff as well. I mean, Chris, there's a whole different mindset that needs to be taken in management with diabetes. I mean, some people don't understand why I get into a bad mood. Well, I'm like everyone else, but I have the added complication of pricking my finger every time I feel weird. I have the complication of taking an injection to micromanage my food. I have the added complication of going to a restaurant and having a glass of wine or two and not knowing what way my blood sugars are reacting and being anxious about not having access to carbohydrates if I'm going on a taxi journey home or going into the town. If I'm in a nightclub and I take a low blood sugar level and I don't have, a handy bit of confectionery on me or something carbohydrate based, and I have to queue up for a drink, there's a lot of little things that take their toll over the years, and you have to become very, very thick-skinned and just accept that that's the way it is.
I only have a very small amount of being able to experience this myself. Is like, obviously I've been able to take my own blood sugar levels, and I was just purely doing this on a selfishly fact of managing what my diet would affect my blood sugars depending on how much I ate, the carbohydrates and macronutrient ratios, all these different things as well. And it was hard work. Like, bringing it along with me and taking my blood sugars, do you know what I mean? Pretty much nearly every 1 to 2 hours it was not easy. So I appreciate the absolute effort that you have to be, and you've got to be on top of this the entire way as well. Now, something I really would enjoy kind of jumping into is like, what would some of the myths and fallacies be about what diabetics are told to do and really what you found is working?
In relation to type 1 or type 2, Chris?
Let's go type 1, because I'm really interested in this. And you know what? I think we're just going to have to bring you back on later, Phil. I'm going to have to beg and plead, and we're going to have to do more, because this is really good.
Yeah, we can cover lots of stuff. I mean, definitely that whole aspect of, carbohydrates. I mean, do I have to avoid carbohydrates to get in shape? The answer is no. It relies on dose and frequency of carbohydrate. Exercise, it may prove conflictual to your control. Type 2, normally you find type 2s are clinically obese or very overweight. And normally with people that are overweight, Chris, as you know, as a personal trainer, there'll be a host of other issues there. There'll be blood pressure, then there'll be underlying cardiovascular disease, eyesight problems. There'll definitely be mobility issues. And I mean, you're diabetic, you're in a chronic inflammatory state. You're in a chronic inflammatory state, recovery is impaired. Mobility will be much more susceptible to gumming up, as I call it. Hydration needs may increase. Kidney function may be slightly at risk. So again, ensuring that you've got healthy blood work done regularly is extremely important. I'm trying to think of certain myths and fallacies that I've got in the way. I'm trying to think about this. Let me see something that would be quite... Well, I mean, the whole idea of meal timing for a start, I mean, if you've got 6 meals set per day and you take a hypoglycemia episode in the middle of one of those meals, or if you take a hyperglycemia, high blood sugar, you've got two sides of the coin. One, the hypo, you're going to need to treat with extra calories and nutrients. Two, the hyperglycemia is you haven't actually absorbed your meal. So if I could eat a meal right now with a normal level of blood sugar and not inject my insulin, and those nutrients don't enter my cells. So the whole idea of nutrient timing sort of goes out the window. If I go into exercise and I train in an anaerobic state, and as discussed earlier, I have an elevation in blood glucose levels and I come out of the gym hyperglycemic, I'm not only catabolic, at more risk of dehydration, but I'm not absorbing any amino acids or any carbohydrate to the extent to replenish and help me with recovery if I don't inject insulin. So this can prove quite detrimental. Over the long term, Chris, yes, it can be rectified acutely, but you imagine if you have those episodes building up over the course of years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think, as a diabetic, the complications are long term. Unless you're stupid with your control and don't respect your body and just let things run high.
Yep.
And trust me, there are a lot of individuals that are in neglect and that are in denial and that do not look after their diabetes. And all I can say from a physiological perspective, from understanding the human body and understanding what actually happens is, God help you. I mean, one of my diabetic specialists in the early days once told me that hyperglycemia is like having boulders running down a small stream inside the bloodstream. So you can imagine the destructive damage that that's going to do to the eyes, the kidneys, liver, and all these processes are going to be affected. And you add smoking into the mix, stressful lifestyle, bad body image, depression, use of antibiotics, use of painkillers. Chris, it's messy.
It's exactly how you said, and I like what you said again. Right near the beginning was obviously when you got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, everything changed overnight for you. Like it was like a switch. It just was like, right, everything changes right now because it has to. It's unfortunate people don't take responsibility as much as they can or as much as they should. And hopefully this really gives them the right leeway. Like, obviously I want them to be able to go towards you now. Like, this is why I brought you on, is so we can showcase this information, give them what works, what doesn't work, and then they can go to you for more as well. So before I do let you go, Phil, where does the listener go now to be able to learn so much more and see what you're doing?
Yeah, so as I said, Chris, at the start, I'm in the middle of writing my first book, and that is on diabetes, muscle, and fitness. So if you're interested in building muscle and shredding fat the right way from an experienced and knowledgeable point of view, where the information that is in that particular text has been tried and tested on myself and many other diabetics, and tweaked and backed by the science and backed by all the current literature, because there's a lot of bullshit out there when it comes to diabetic nutrition advice. It's a lot of very simple, generic, outdated information that lacks evidence base. And I saw that and I wanted to go in, how can I put it, balls deep, so to speak.
Very good.
Excuse the word, but I wanted to go in and cover every aspect as a diabetic that I didn't feel comfortable with nutritionally, that I didn't feel comfortable with from a training perspective, and package that up in a complete go-to guide and resource that diabetics can refer to. So that will be out in the next 3 to 4 months. If you are interested in it, head over to diabeticmuscleandfitness.com. Sign up. I have a little teaser free diabetic fitness report book that you can download there. And in the lead to that, when that book is launched, I will be launching the world's first diabetic muscle and fitness community specific to individuals that are only interested in weight resistance training, building a stronger, healthier, better moving body, and being able to manage and treat their diabetes through nutrition and lifestyle, and appropriate mindset and philosophies and all that kind of stuff. And I want to tie that all together and bring and develop a really top-notch community of individuals that want to help each other.
Man, I absolutely love it. So all those links are going to be in the show notes for you to click on right on over. Phil, I think we're going to have to get you back on very soon. So for the listener, I want to hear from you. What do you want to know more from Phil and myself? What questions do you have? Get in contact through the channels. Get onto the site and ask what you really want us to delve into, because we'll jump into so much more, because I know, Phil, we're talking about what we can really talk about just with this episode alone, and we had a list longer than my arm. So I'm looking forward to doing more. And as all, I'm really looking forward to the book coming out. I'm going to keep on pressuring you to pump this out quicker so I can get my hands on it as well. And mate, I'm always looking forward to more.
One of the first to get a copy, Chris. I'll be sending that over to you.
You are too kind, brother. All right, brother, I'm going to be talking to you soon. Thank you so much. This has been legendary. I'm looking forward to more.
Excellent, Chris. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here. And if you've liked this episode, please share it out and make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss out. Now, to really get the most out of you being here, go to turningproacademy.com/start here. There you can get access to the free coaching guide. So if you want to know how to double or triple your clients in just a few weeks, or if you want to start and grow your online business, be sure to head on over to turningproacademy.com/start here to get free access to it now. And as always, I'm so thankful for you being here, and I'm really looking forward to you joining next week in the new episode.